Hi, I'm Pam Passamano, and we're here at the 615 studios to talk about Steve Gulley and honor him with our good friends and my lovely wife of 45 years, Pam Passamano, and the man and the legend, Ronnie Reno, who created Reno's Old Time Music, and Michael Johnathan, the legend as well. The very impressive litany of projects that he's working on and succeeded in short order
I'm
with
known
wood
for
songs.
my litany.
That's right. I've been asked by the Gaither Music Group to say some words and comments about someone who was near and dear to my heart, Steve Gulley, and his passing about a year ago. I think if you look at Steve Gulley, the most important aspects are three areas: the man, the music, and the mentor. The man was just a tremendous person that you would never forget and would want to meet. He is very loving to all of his family, friends, and acquaintances. He was someone who you could always rely on and depend, and very professional in every aspect of whatever he did, personal as well as business, as a musician, and as a Christian. I think what is very important to look at, and we all know him and focus on his music, and it's so easy because he was such an incredible songwriter. He really knew how to write songs that touched our heart and soul, especially the faithful ones, the gospel songs. And it was just a special treat to hear him sing in that signature sound that he had that would just touch you in a special way. When he sang, you knew that was Steve Gulley, and brought a smile on everyone's face. And that is a blessing and something that not a lot of people can own, and he owned that. What I do want to really emphasize is, besides the special person that Steve was and his incredible gift in musicianship, he was a tremendous mentor. And it was shown with family members, with friends, and just acquaintances. He would spend a tremendous amount of time just consulting and just making people feel good about themselves, and just help them in not only their personal life, but also their musician career, as well as in their faith. At Real Rhythm Records, we had a tremendous opportunity to work with Steve. The first project was with Steve Gulley and Tim Stafford, and then Grasstown, that was followed up by his own band, Steve Gulley and New Pinnacle, and then the wonderful gospel album that he recorded for us. He also did two special projects, God Didn't Choose Sides and Christmas the Mountain Way, which were critically acclaimed, and especially the Christmas the Mountain Way really showed the culture, and Steve was very proud of his heritage, and the mountain tradition and everything associated where he lived, which was in Cumberland Gap area. What I'd like to do, one other area, we were also very fortunate at Real Rhythm. He was a top-notch producer for us, and he, consistent with being very proud of his area, the Cumberland Gap, he found and discovered a lot of talent for the label, and more importantly, rose to national attention for these artists. And some of the artists you probably know: Brand New Strings, Dave Atkins, Locust Ridge, and Stuart Wyrick, as well as Cumberland River, and many more. I'm going to end my comments by just sharing with you some things that you might not know about Steve. You know about all the hits, the number ones, and the top tens, but here's a short list of things that I think are very special in his life. Steve played traditional music, country music, with his dad's band before playing bluegrass music. Steve's first musical stage presence was with his dad at age 5. Steve played first played the stage at the Grand Ole Opry as a teenager in the 1980 in his dad's bluegrass band, Cumberland Gap. Steve was music director at the world-famous Renfrew Valley shows. Steve met his wife, Debbie, through their music and performing on the Renfrew Valley shows. Steve and Debbie have 5 children and 9 grandchildren. Steve was a contestant on Nashville Network's You Can Be a Star. I mean, when I first found out about this, and he's so humble, you would never know practically any of this because that's just not who Steve was. Steve would just do what he had to do, and the rest was, you'd have to find out yourself. Steve sang backup on Keith Whitley's Sad Songs and Waltzes, recorded at the request of J.D. Crowe, who produced the album. Steve's primary music instrument was bass, and he switched when he joined Doyle Lawson and Quicksilver. First song to make the national chart with Steve singing lead with Doyle Lawson and Quicksilver was Sweet Rose Jones, and that coincidentally was the first song that he sang on stage at age 5. Steve was a founding member of the group Mountain Heart. Steve gave the band its name on the song he had written that bore the same title. Steve co-wrote IBMA's Song of the Year, Blue Highways Through the Window of a Train, along with his writing partner, Tim Stafford. And Tim Stafford and he co-wrote probably over 100 songs. Steve's band name, New Pinnacle, was derived from his dad's band, the New Pinnacle Mountain Boys. Both were named after the Pinnacle Overlook at the Cumberland Gap National Park in Steve's hometown in Cumberland Gap. In 2016, Steve received an honorary doctorate of music from Lincoln Memorial University in Harrogate, Tennessee, only the 4th one to given in the field in the school's history. The first was given to Ralph Stanley in 1976. So I've taken up a lot of time. I wanted to share a lot of this with you for someone who was very near and dear to my heart, and I miss him every day. So at this point, I want to turn it over to my lovely wife, Pam, who has some comments.
Our friend Steve, I believe, was brought into our life by God for a purpose. We moved out from California. I'm California born and raised, and so moving to the Nashville area in Tennessee as a mature woman was a wee bit of a culture shock for me. Had been out here and gotten to know Steve and Debbie through the IBMA conferences that we were here for a week for many times, and they became family. Steve loved the area of Cumberland Gap where he grew up. He was so proud of the people there. He was so happy to share stories. He knew stories probably about every section of that area. And when Sam and I were able to, the first time we were able to go up there and spend time with Steve and Debbie and his parents, he drove around and he would tell us stories about, well, this is where my cousins and I would run and play when we were kids. This is where my aunt and uncle's store was that I would go spend a lot of time in, not far within walking distance of my house, but it's burned down now. But here's all the stories behind that. There was one time Sam and my husband were going up to spend some time up there in the Cumberland Gap area, and they got off track a little bit and ended up on a dirt road that turned into a gravel road that went up. They knew they were supposed to be over here, but they couldn't. And anyway, the next time we went up, to give you Steve's joking nature came out, and he made sure that there were signs and cones and a big red sign that said Sam this way with a big red arrow.
It was scarier than you're describing.
It was. But
anyway.
That was Steve. Steve loved you, and you knew it. I'm sorry. He gave of himself so much to you and wanted you to be the best person you could be. He was not afraid to share his faith with you at any time. He was not afraid to see if you were a little down, to pull you aside and ask you what was going on. He was always there. Whenever he would call, he would always end the call with a God bless. Is everybody okay? Do I need to pray for somebody? He was, if I needed somebody to pray for, somebody I knew, he was always there. His love of his family was amazing. His sharing of his mother's kitchen and her cooking for you. He bragged on Linda's cooking all the time. And it was such a pleasure when Sam and I got to go sit in the kitchen with her and Dawn and Steve and Debbie and eat the incredible, wonderful Southern cooking. I told her, I said, this is Southern cooking, and will you please teach me? And I did at one time she did teach me how to make her fried pies, her very famous fried pies. He was so proud. He loved his area that he grew up in so much that at one point in time he actually thought about running as a representative for the area for the Tennessee legislature because he cared about the quality of life for every single person who lived there. He had that quality in it, and it came out a lot of times in his writing. His ability to share his life joys and his life struggles. If he knew that was a story that was going to help you get through whatever it was you were going through. I miss him terribly. I believe the bluegrass community misses him and understands the loss of for us. I mean, the gain for him is amazing. I know that I will see my brother on the other side. That is a given. And I know that he will be there when it's my turn, and our turns, he will be there to greet us and show us around, and take us to the, show and make sure everybody is celebrating the way I know it's just going to be. And I am glad that I was blessed to have him be a part of my life and my children's life. And for that, I'm very grateful.
Amen.
Amen.
Right?
First, I want to thank the Passamano family for giving me the opportunity to speak about our dear friend, Steve Gulley. It was such a shock when we found out that Steve was sick, and he had a fight in front of him, and bless his sweetheart. We were all praying for Steve as he would have done for us. There's not a doubt in my mind. I got to know Steve Gulley and many different times in his career. I met Steve actually at the Renfro Valley Barn Dance, even before, when we were going up through there. Many years ago, I met Steve. In fact, Steve did my very first set of shows from Renfro Valley, Kentucky. He was playing with Tasha Harris, which was a lovely young lady up there. He was backing them all, but anyway, Steve performed with her when we did our first batch of shows in '93. So, but anyway, I had no earthly idea that Steve was the singer that he truly was until he went with Doyle Lawson, because Steve would sneak in there and sing harmonies. It didn't make no difference what key they were in. He was way up there in the tree if he wanted to get there. But when he went with Doyle, I understood what a singer Steve Gulley was, and then he went from there to form a new group, and I got to see Mountain Heart, seen him his part of Mountain Heart, but he was always drawn back to the traditional music. I think Mountain Heart, they're a great group, but they got a little in front of Steve, and he wanted to come back with his music, and rightly so. He was so talented with his writing, running his studio up there, and also in being a band leader, which is not an easy chore in any way. But he was always the sweetest person to me, and his personality always shined. I remember I went to Lincoln Memorial University one time, and we met up there, and Steve was the first one to meet me and walk me around the campus, and he was very intelligent. Steve was really an intelligent, and he had a good spin on, the way he would say it. It was wonderful, and it was a great positive attitude, and he left me with that, about that. We want to send our prayers out to his family, and let them know how much Steve Gulley was well loved in our industry. Thank you, Sam.
Michael?
Yeah, thank you for letting me be part of this. This is an important thing. And Steve, there's a place for him in the IBMA Hall of Fame, I think. There's a small community of very beloved musicians, which is in itself a small community as well. So Steve was certainly part of that. The music partnership between him and Barry Abernathy in Mountain Heart was just brilliant. Like Ronnie was saying, what he did with Doyle Lawson, he really came out, and his love of the music of America's front porch is the way I would refer to that. Even on WDVX, which is very much a front porch radio station, he presented all kinds of music on his radio show because he loved it dearly. What he did with the Renfro Valley and being the music director there expressed his love for that true rural tradition of what this music was like. He took what John Lair started, and recreated it for the next generation. And he did such a great job. But I think the true testament of a man's life is his family when he's no longer there. And I think Steve had like 5 children that loved him. They loved their dad. And Debbie, his wife, has done such a wonderful job always presenting his legacy and his life and his music and keeping Steve's memory alive. And I think it's his family that is the greatest statement of Steve and who he was as a person. And there's a song that comes to mind because so many families have lost someone, and I think the example of the Gulley family has been really loving in the way they continue to represent the person that they loved so much. And after World War I, Irving Berlin sat in his little room and he looked at the Spanish influenza and this big economic meltdown, and the nations were fighting each other, and so many people, millions of people lost someone in their family. And he sat in his room and wrote, "Blue skies shining on me, nothing but blue skies do I see. Bluebird, they're singing a song, nothing but bluebirds all day long. Never saw the sun shine so bright, never saw things looking so right. Noticing the day hurrying by, when you're in love, my how they fly like blue days, all of them gone. Nothing but blue skies from now on." So it's not bluegrass, but it kind of represents the spirit of Steve's family, looking at the good and the wonderful and the loving part of the reflection of who Steve was. And so I want to congratulate his family for doing such a good job for their dad, for Debbie's husband.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Well, that was beautiful. I want to thank Ronnie Pam, Michael, and also the Gaither Music Group for giving us the opportunity to do this. You can check out Steve, his music and his legacy everywhere on the internet, Spotify, wherever. He left us with a tremendous canon of wonderful music that we'll enjoy and be shared for future generations to come. And I just want to say one thing. Steve, I got the Volts hat for you. They were very special to you. And Debbie, you're a Kentucky fan? I got the blue for you. Okay, so I'm impartial. Thank you, everybody. Good night.